The Mafia boss offered her $5,000 to speak Russian, but the moment Emma answered in his dead mother's forgotten dialect, Dominic Rourke stopped breathing. Outside rain hammered the windows of Seattle's most exclusive restaurant. Inside, Emma stood beneath golden lights with an overdue hospital bill hidden in her apron and her mother's life hanging on a payment she could not afford. $5,000 could buy another treatment. It could also open a door she might never escape. What began as a cruel wager would become a story about dangerous love, moral debt, and the thin line between being protected and being owned. Stay until the end, because Emma's hardest choice will not be whether to trust a criminal. It will be whether love can survive the truth. Like the video and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Before Emma could decide whether love had anything to do with Dominic Rourke, she had to survive the morning after meeting him. At 7:30, she sat beneath the white lights of a university lecture hall wearing the same black dress pants from the restaurant. Rain had dried in pale marks along the cuffs. The $5,000 rested inside a sealed envelope at the bottom of her canvas bag. The money felt heavier than every book she carried. Professor Samuel Ward wrote one sentence on the board. A translator never disappears. People imagine translation as a clean bridge, he said. One person speaks. Another receives the meaning. The translator vanishes between them. He faced the class. But every word chosen creates pressure. Every word omitted creates silence. Accuracy can become a weapon when the speaker understands consequences the listener cannot see. Emma lowered her eyes and copied the sentence. Her phone vibrated inside her bag. She knew who it was without looking. She kept seeing Dominic's face when she had spoken in his mother's dialect. It had not looked like surprise. It had looked like grief, finding him in public. After class, Samuel watched her close her notebook. You corrected my Russian quotation 3 times. The article used the wrong case. You only become that precise when you are anxious. I worked late. At the restaurant, yes. Did you translate something? Just a dinner order. His gaze fell to the hand she kept over her bag. A dinner order rarely keeps someone awake after dawn. Emma stood. I need to see my mother. Samuel did not stop her. Words do not become harmless because someone pays you to carry them. Outside Seattle was the color of wet concrete. Cars hissed through standing water. Emma opened her phone beneath a coffee shop awning. 3 messages waited from an unknown number. An address in Pioneer Square. 7 tonight. Your mother is awake. Emma called Dominic. He answered immediately. How do you know whether my mother is awake? I confirmed that the hospital accepted the payment. You called her nurse. I asked a question. You had no right. No, he said. I had access. That is not the same thing. I know. Then why do you act like it is? Because access is useful before it becomes polite. The honesty made her angrier. You arranged the payment before I agreed to anything. You agreed to the wager. I agreed to speak Russian for $5,000. I did not agree to let you enter my mother's life. Come tonight. Read the contract. Say no after you understand the offer. I understand it. You understand the money. The line went dead. Emma hated that he was right. At Harborview Medical Center, Carol Hayes sat upright beneath a blue blanket with a crossword puzzle on her lap. Her skin looked pale, but her eyes remained sharp. You look terrible, Carol said. You're wearing a hospital gown, and I still look better. Emma kissed her forehead and sat beside the bed. Carol studied her. Did you find the money? Yes. How I translated for someone. What language? Russian. Something moved across Carol's face. Emma saw it. Did Grandma Anya know a woman named Irina Rourke? Carol reached for her water. No, you answered too quickly. After a long silence, Carol looked toward the rain-covered window. Your grandmother knew Irina through a church pantry in Tacoma. Irina was married to Patrick Rourke, Dominic's father. Carol nodded. Anya once helped Irina leave him. What happened? She went back because she had a son. Emma thought of Dominic across the restaurant table. How did Irina die? The official answer was an accident. And the real answer, I do not know. Afterward, everyone around that family became quiet. Emma took her mother's hand. He arranged for me to serve his table. He knew who I was. What did he offer? A consulting contract? Interpreting. Enough to cover treatment. Carol's fingers tightened around hers. Do not turn me into the reason you enter a room you know is dangerous. What am I supposed to do? Let them stop treatment. You are supposed to remember that saving me and surrendering yourself are not the same act. They feel the same when the invoice arrives. At 6:45, Emma stood outside a restored brick building in Pioneer Square. The lower windows belonged to Rourke Protective Services. A polished sign listed Freight Consulting Commercial Security and Risk Management. All legal words. None made her feel safer. Caleb Knox waited in the lobby. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark suit that fit him like armor. A pale scar crossed the edge of his jaw. He looked at Emma as if someone had delivered a package he had not ordered. "You are late." She checked the clock. "I am 4 minutes early. You arrived after I started waiting." "That sounds personal." Inside the elevator, Caleb entered a private code. "You are the waitress. You are the welcoming committee. I remove problems before Dominic has to notice them. Then you must be busy." His eyes found hers in the mirrored wall. Dominic mistakes defiance for character, and you mistake intimidation for conversation. The elevator opened onto an office overlooking the bay. Dominic stood near a conference table with his sleeves rolled to his forearms. A folder waited before him. Emma did not sit. "You knew my grandmother. I knew of her. You arranged the restaurant meeting." "Yes. Why, I needed someone fluent in Russian who did not belong to my world. You researched me. I research everyone who enters a room with me. I entered carrying scotch. You listened while men discussed murder. You challenged me. I needed to know whether fear changed your accuracy." Emma stared at him. "Did I pass? You corrected me in front of 4 armed men? That was not an answer." "Yes," he said. "You passed." She opened the folder. The 6-month contract offered more money than she could earn in 3 years at the restaurant. A separate clause covered Carol's current treatment through the Arena House Medical Relief Fund. Emma read every page, then wrote beneath the printed conditions, "I do not carry weapons, money packages, or sealed documents. I do not enter meetings where violence has been planned. I do not translate threats against children or families." Caleb gave a quiet laugh. "You believe violence announces itself. I believe men like you do." She added one final condition. "My mother's care cannot be withdrawn if I resign." Dominic read the changes. Caleb stepped forward. "She thinks she is negotiating." Dominic signed beneath Emma's handwriting. "I hired her because she does." Emma looked at the signature. "Signing something and respecting it are different things. You will tell me when I forget. That assumes I am still in the room." Dominic closed the folder. "You can leave." For 1 second, freedom was as simple as walking to the elevator. Then Emma saw Carol beneath the blue hospital blanket. She heard the doctor discussing delayed treatment. She remembered the final notice in her apron. "What is tonight's assignment?" Caleb's jaw tightened. Dominic handed her another folder. "A shipping broker is lying to me. I want you to hear where." The meeting took place in a private hotel suite overlooking Puget Sound. The broker was Viktor Sokolov, a silver-haired Russian with gold cufflinks and a careful smile. He claimed a container had been delayed by a labor dispute. Emma sat behind Dominic with a notebook. Viktor said he had grown up near Vladivostok, but his accent and vocabulary belonged to Moscow business circles. He described port inspections like a man who had read reports but never stood beneath a cargo crane. Emma translated each sentence. Then Viktor mentioned the container using a feminine form that sounded harmless in English. In certain criminal circles, the same word referred to women transported under coercion. Emma's fingers went still. Dominic noticed. Viktor said the shipment would move before dawn. Emma translated the literal meaning, then leaned closer to Dominic. "He is not discussing machinery. What is he discussing, people?" Dominic asked Viktor in English what is inside the container industrial equipment. Viktor's assistant whispered a curse in Russian. Emma said, "He is lying." Viktor finally looked at her as if she were no longer furniture. Dominic asked, "How many people I do not know what she told you?" "That was not my question." Viktor pushed back his chair. Caleb moved between him and the door. Emma expected violence. Dominic only closed the folder. "The shipment does not enter my port. You will lose more than money," Viktor said. "Then I will learn what it costs." In the hallway, Emma looked at Dominic. "You believed me. I believed the part of him that was afraid of you." Caleb stepped from the suite. "You embarrassed a man with powerful friends. He was moving people like cargo. You do not know what he was doing. I know what his words meant." Caleb moved close enough for Emma to see the white line of his scar. In our world, words mean what the man with power decides they mean. Then why does Dominic need me? Caleb had no immediate answer. The silence told Emma more than either man intended. The next morning, she found a new camera above the entrance to her apartment building. Maya Parker stood on the sidewalk in nursing scrubs holding 2 coffees while a technician climbed down a ladder. "There she is," Maya said. "The mysterious consultant with private surveillance. Emma called Dominic. You installed a camera outside my apartment. The original one was broken. You inspected my building. Victor saw your face. Then tell me the risk. Do not redesign my life while I am in class. The camera improves your safety. You do not own the building. You do not own the street. You do not own me." The pause lasted 1 second. "No," Dominic said. "Remove it." 10 minutes later, the technician returned to the ladder. The camera came down. The black sedan across the street remained. Maya looked from the car to Emma's new coat. "Just make sure the person saving your life is not buying it." The words followed Emma through the next several weeks. Her work carried her into private dining rooms, waterfront offices, hotel suites, and charity events where politicians shook Dominic's hand beneath chandeliers. She translated negotiations, apologies, excuses, and threats disguised as courtesy. Dominic's organization existed between legal and illegal worlds. His companies guarded warehouses, managed construction sites, moved freight, and funded medical grants. The same network collected debts, controlled access, buried evidence, and made people afraid to say no. Dominic never asked Emma to carry a weapon. He did not need to. The room was often the weapon. The first payment reached Emma's account on a Friday morning. She stared at the number while standing in line for coffee, then transferred enough to cover the rent, the electric bill, and the balance on Carol's old prescriptions. For the first time in months, her bank app did not display a warning. The relief was immediate and humiliating. That afternoon, a garment bag arrived at the apartment. Inside was a midnight blue dress with a note from Dominic. For formal assignments, Emma called him. "I already own clothes. You own clothes for serving dinner. I am not wearing a costume you selected. It is not a costume. It came with your name on the receipt. Then return it." She did. The following week, she attended a museum fundraiser in the black dress she used for university presentations. A donor's wife looked at the faded hem, then spoke to Emma slowly as if poverty had damaged her hearing. Dominic noticed. He never mentioned the returned dress. He simply introduced Emma as his language consultant and asked for her opinion before speaking to a state senator. The donor's wife stopped smiling. On the ride home, Emma understood the true seduction of Dominic's world. It was not the money or the cars. It was the moment powerful people waited for her voice. She had spent years carrying plates through rooms where no one remembered her name. Beside Dominic, a pause from her could stop a shipment, alter a contract, or make a man reconsider a lie. Power did not always feel like domination. Sometimes it felt like finally being heard. That frightened her because part of her wanted more. Yet there were moments when the danger loosened. During a late drive through Seattle, Dominic asked, "How do you say I remember?" Emma gave him the Russian phrase. He repeated it badly. She corrected the stress. "What do you remember?" she asked. "My mother singing while she cooked. What did she sing? I remember the sound, not the words." "Why did you never learn?" He watched rain slide across the windshield. "My father hated hearing a language he could not control. What happened when she spoke it?" Dominic's hands tightened on the wheel. He made the house quiet. The sentence contained no confession, but it carried the shape of one. Emma repeated the phrase slowly. Dominic tried again. This time his voice almost broke. 2 days later, a doctor showed Emma and Carol the latest scans. The treatment was working. The tumor had responded. The doctor promised nothing but hope entered the room quietly and sat beside them. That evening, Emma studied the payment statement in the hospital cafeteria. Every charge had been covered by the Arena House Fund. Dominic had not threatened to withdraw the money. The contract said he could not. Still leaving meant returning to unpaid bills, delayed treatment, and choices measured in days. He had not built a locked door. He had built a warm room she could not afford to leave. Maya confronted her that night. "Can you quit?" "Yes." "Then quit for 1 week." Emma stared into the open refrigerator. "I cannot." "That is not the same answer." Her phone vibrated. A message from Caleb contained an address near the Tacoma waterfront and an order to arrive within an hour. Emma reached for her coat. Maya stepped away. Of course you have to go. The warehouse near the port was almost empty. Rain struck the metal roof. A single light swung above a man bound to a chair. Blood darkened his collar. Caleb stood behind him. Dominic waited near a steel table. A photograph of a young girl in a hospital bed rested beside a financial report. This is Luis Alvarez, Dominic said. He took $180,000 from one of my accounts. Luis raised his head. My daughter needed surgery. Caleb placed another document on the table. He also gave port records to our enemies. Luis denied it in broken English. A Russian accountant near the wall spoke rapidly, claiming the theft proved betrayal. Emma heard the phrase he used. Remove the branch before it infects the tree. Dominic looked at her. Translate exactly. Emma looked at Luis, then at the photograph of his daughter. He recommends suspending Luis until the financial records are reviewed. Caleb turned. That is not what he said. It is what he meant if this is a business meeting instead of an execution. The light continued to swing. Luis began praying beneath his breath. Emma removed Carol's hospital invoice from her bag and placed it beside the photograph. 2 sick women, 2 impossible bills, 2 people who had taken money from a dangerous man and called it survival. She faced Dominic. You paid me because my mother was sick. I paid you because you earned it. Would I have earned it if I worked in your warehouse? No one moved. You call what I did survival. You call what he did theft. The difference is that you liked me. Dominic looked down at the photograph. Caleb stepped closer. Dominic. Dominic raised one hand. Caleb stopped. At last, Dominic looked at Luis. You have 30 days to repay the money through legal work. Every account connected to the theft will be reviewed outside Caleb's authority. Caleb's face hardened. You are setting a precedent. No, Dominic said. I am correcting a decision before it becomes one. Luis sagged against the chair. Emma released the breath trapped in her chest. Caleb leaned close to her. You think you saved him? I kept him alive. For tonight. He walked into the shadows. Dominic remained beside the table, staring at the child's photograph as if it had opened something inside him that power had kept sealed. Emma watched him and understood that changing his decision had not made the room safe. It had only changed who would pay for it. The cost arrived 3 days later. Emma found Luis Alvarez in the pediatric wing of Harborview, standing outside his daughter's room with a paper cup crushed between both hands. He looked smaller without ropes around his wrists, more human, more afraid. Through the glass, Sophia slept beneath a pink blanket. A monitor traced the rhythm of her heart in soft green lines. Luis saw Emma and straightened. You should not be here. I came to see my mother. He glanced toward the 2 men sitting at the end of the corridor. They wore ordinary jackets. Their attention never left him. Emma lowered her voice. Are they Dominic's? Luis nodded. He said I could repay the money. That is better than what Caleb wanted. Luis looked through the glass at his daughter. Better is not free. Emma followed his gaze. She survived. Yes, you survived. For now, he turned to her. Mercy from a powerful man is another kind of debt. Emma wanted to argue. She wanted to say Dominic had chosen restraint. She wanted to believe the choice mattered. Then one of the men at the end of the hall checked his watch. Luis returned to the room without another word. That evening, Emma found Dominic alone in his office. Seattle glowed beneath the windows. The city looked clean from that height. No blood, no fear, only glass rain and reflected light. You are watching Luis. I am making sure he does not disappear. From whom Dominic closed the file in front of him. Men who think my decision made him available. He thinks you are watching to make sure he does not run. That too. Emma walked to the window. You saved his life and kept the fear. I changed what I could. You changed what you wanted. Dominic rose. What would you have done? I would have let him go. And when the people who helped him stole again, you assume kindness creates weakness. I assume desperation repeats itself. Emma turned. Then why did you hire me? His expression shifted. The answer was too close to the truth, because you noticed what everyone else ignored. No, because my desperation made me available. Dominic did not deny it. The silence between them became another kind of confession. Emma picked up her coat. Your Russian lesson starts tomorrow. I did not agree to lessons. You asked how to say I remember. That was one phrase. You pronounced it like a threat. A faint smile touched his mouth. Tomorrow at 8. The first lesson took place at Dominic's office after everyone else had left. Emma wrote 3 words on a sheet of paper. Mother, memory, home. Dominic stared at them. Those are not beginner words. They are the only ones you keep trying to say. He repeated each word. His accent was rough, but not careless. Emma corrected his vowels. He tried again. What did your mother call you, she asked. Dima. The name sounded strange in his voice. Soft, almost young. Did anyone else use it? No. Why not? Because she was the only person allowed. Emma looked at him. Allowed by whom Dominic leaned back in his chair. My father believed affection weakened authority, and you believed him for a long time. Outside the office, an elevator chimed. Caleb entered carrying a folder. His eyes moved from the Russian words to Emma. I thought this was a business office. It is, Dominic said. Caleb placed the folder on the desk. We have a problem at Pier 27. Emma began gathering her notes. Dominic stopped her. Stay. Caleb's expression hardened. This does not concern her. If it involves Russian contracts, it does. It involves loyalty. Emma sat down again. Caleb opened the folder. A regional captain had delayed payments after losing 2 shipments. Caleb wanted immediate retaliation. Dominic asked Emma to review a recorded call. The captain spoke in English, but a Russian advisor whispered behind him. Emma listened twice. He is not planning to defect. Caleb folded his arms. You cannot know that. The advisor says they need time to move families out of the district, which means they expect violence. It means they are afraid of you. Caleb looked at Dominic. Fear has kept them useful. Emma said fear also made them hide information. Caleb's eyes narrowed. This is not a seminar. No. In a seminar, people admit when they are wrong. Dominic almost smiled. Caleb noticed. That mattered more than the insult. Dominic delayed retaliation for 48 hours and ordered an independent review. Caleb left without looking at Emma. The office door closed softly. Emma asked, How long has he worked for you? 15 years. And how many times have you overruled him in front of someone? Dominic looked toward the door. Not often. You should be careful. Of Caleb, of making a loyal man feel replaced. Dominic studied her. You are worried about him. I am worried about what men do when they mistake access for ownership. For several weeks, the lessons continued. Sometimes they studied grammar. Sometimes they discussed nothing that could be found in a textbook. Emma taught Dominic the words for apology, freedom, and choice. He struggled most with apology. You keep placing the stress in the wrong place, she said. Maybe the word is designed badly. Maybe you are. He looked offended for half a second. Then he laughed. The sound surprised both of them. No one laughs at me in this office, he said. That is because everyone here is afraid of being thrown through a window. I have never thrown anyone through that window. The fact that you specified that window is not reassuring. He stood and walked toward her. Emma remained beside the desk. The room felt smaller when he was close. What are you afraid of? He asked. You. That was quick. You asked a simple question. You do not act afraid. Fear and obedience are not the same thing. His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth. What do you confuse with safety? Emma knew the answer before she spoke. Being needed. Dominic's expression changed. He stepped closer. The city disappeared behind him. The sound of rain softened against the glass. Emma could feel his breath. He lifted one hand, then stopped before touching her face. The office door opened. Caleb stood in the entrance. No one moved. Caleb looked at Dominic's raised hand, then at Emma. Victor Sokolov's people contacted the Vancouver route. Dominic lowered his hand. I will review it in the morning. They want an answer tonight. They can wait. Caleb stared at him. They are testing us. Dominic's voice cooled. Then let them learn patience. Caleb left. Emma collected her notebook. This is becoming dangerous. It was dangerous before. No, before Caleb thought I was useful. And now he thinks I matter. At home, Maya was waiting at the kitchen table. A dark stain marked the cuff of Emma's coat. Maya touched it. Is this blood? It is not mine. That is not comforting. There was an argument at a warehouse. An argument does not bleed through wool. Emma pulled the coat away. I did not hurt anyone. You keep saying that like it means no one was hurt. Emma opened the refrigerator. You do not understand, then explain it. I am stopping things. What things? People getting killed, families being threatened, deals that move people like cargo. Maya stared at her. And the men doing those things let you stop them sometimes. Why, Emma had no answer that did not sound dangerous. Maya stood. You keep telling yourself you are the only person in the room with a conscience. That is how dangerous people make good people stay. I am not trapped. Then leave for 1 week. Emma looked down. Maya's voice softened. You cannot. My mother has treatment. That is not the same as choosing. Emma felt anger rise because Maya had found the exact wound. You do not get to judge me while my mother is dying. I am not judging you. You are. I am scared for you. Emma turned away. Maya picked up her bag. When you stop hearing the difference, call me. The apartment door closed. Emma stood alone in the kitchen. Her phone rang. Caleb's name appeared on the screen. The next morning, a package arrived without a return address. Inside were financial reports, shipping manifests, and translated contracts. Emma saw her name on the first page. Her electronic signature appeared beneath approval for a cargo transfer through Tacoma. She turned the page. Another signature. Then another. The documents connected her to accounts she had never seen and meetings she had never attended. Her pulse accelerated. She read the Russian translations. At first the errors looked careless. A wrong case, an unusual verb, a phrase placed in the wrong order. Then she noticed the pattern. Every 7th line contained a mistake. Emma wrote down the line numbers. 7, 14, 21, 35. They formed a sequence. She opened a federal evidence database she had studied in Samuel Ward's seminar. The numbers matched file classifications used in organized crime investigations. Someone had created the documents to frame her. Someone else had hidden a warning inside them. Emma called Dominic, then stopped before the line connected. If Caleb controlled the files, telling Dominic without proof could place her in greater danger. If Dominic already knew, the call would tell him she had discovered the trap. She ended it. That afternoon, Emma went to Samuel's office. He looked at the sealed drive in her hand. What is this insurance? Against what disappearing? Samuel did not reach for it. Tell me what happened. I cannot. Then I cannot help you. You can if I miss 2 Monday seminars. He looked at her carefully. What happens then? You send this drive to the Federal Public Corruption Office and 3 journalists. Emma. It contains records, names, and conversations. Are you in danger? Yes. From whom people who think danger is another form of management. Samuel finally took the drive. Are you asking me to protect you? No. What are you asking? To make sure removing me does not remove the truth. Samuel placed the drive inside a locked drawer. Translation leaves fingerprints. Emma nodded. Then these are mine. She returned to Dominic's building after dark. Most of the offices were empty. As she passed the conference room, she heard Caleb's voice behind a partially closed door. Emma stopped. Another man answered in Russian. She recognized the voice of Viktor Sokolov's assistant. Caleb said, once the signatures are authenticated, she becomes the civilian link. Federal agents will believe she managed the translations and approved the accounts. The other man asked what Dominic would do. He will destroy every alliance he has trying to save her. And then we take what remains. Emma activated the recorder on her phone. Caleb continued. He described private accounts, hidden port access, and payments redirected over several years. The betrayal had not begun with Emma. She had only accelerated it. A chair scraped across the floor. Emma stepped into a dark archive room and pulled the door nearly closed. Caleb entered the hallway. His footsteps stopped outside. Emma held her breath. The door opened an inch. Light cut across her shoes. Her phone vibrated once in her hand. Caleb remained still. Then another voice called his name from the elevator. The door closed. His footsteps moved away. Emma stayed in the darkness until the building became quiet. Dominic was alone when she entered his office. He looked up. You should not be here. Emma locked the door behind her. That makes 2 of us. She placed her phone on the desk and played the recording. Caleb's voice filled the room. Every hidden account, every forged document, every planned betrayal. Dominic listened without moving. Only his right hand changed. His fingers slowly closed against the desk. When the recording ended, Emma said, "He has been working against you for years." Dominic looked at the phone. "How long have you known long enough to need proof? You should have come to me." Emma laughed once without humor. "That sentence is the problem. He could have killed you, so could you." Dominic stood. "I have never threatened your life. You built a world where everyone else can." The words struck him. Emma placed the forged documents beside the phone. "These carry my signature." His face darkened. "I did not authorize them, I know. You believed I might have. I believed I needed an exit that did not depend on your permission." Dominic looked at her for a long time. Then he pressed a button on his desk. 2 armed men entered. He ordered them to locate Caleb without alerting anyone. Emma said, "If he knows you heard the recording, he will disappear. He will not get far. You are thinking like a man protecting his empire." "What should I think? Like a man who wants the truth." Dominic dismissed the guards. He opened a map of the city. "Caleb expects you to carry the original records to a federal contact. We let him believe it. You want to use me as bait. I want to end this before he uses you as a body. That is still using me." Dominic's jaw tightened. "You are already in his plan. Then I choose how I enter yours." Emma set her conditions. She would select the location. She would carry no real evidence. She would have an independent exit. Dominic's men would not move until Caleb exposed his partners. Dominic agreed to every condition. "You stay in my sight," he said. "No, Emma. If you control every door, this is not my plan." He looked at her with anger and fear fighting behind his eyes. Finally, he nodded. 2 hours later, Emma entered an underground parking garage carrying a silver case filled with blank paper. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Her footsteps echoed between concrete columns. She reached the elevator and pressed the button. The doors opened. Caleb stood inside. His face was calm. A pistol rested against his leg. Emma did not move. "You are early," she said. "So are you." He took the case from her hand. The gun pressed against her ribs. Emma looked into the empty elevator. Caleb touched the button for the lowest level. "You should have stayed a waitress." The doors closed. Emma watched the numbers descend while Caleb's reflection stood beside hers in the steel wall. Neither of them looked away. The elevator descended beneath the parking garage. Emma counted the floors by the movement in her stomach. 4, 5, 6. Caleb stood beside her with the gun pressed against her ribs and the silver case hanging from his other hand. His reflection in the steel wall looked almost peaceful. That calm frightened her more than anger would have. When the elevator stopped, the doors opened onto a concrete service tunnel. A black vehicle waited with its rear door open. Caleb guided her inside. Emma looked for Dominic's men a security camera. Anything that suggested the plan still belonged to them. There was nothing. Caleb took her phone, removed the battery, and dropped both pieces into a storm drain. "You expected him to follow you," he said. Emma kept her voice steady. "I expected you to be smarter than this." He sat across from her. "You think provoking me will create an opportunity? I think men who need to explain themselves usually make mistakes." Caleb smiled. "That is something Dominic would say." No, Dominic would say less. The vehicle pulled into traffic. Emma tried to follow the turns through the dark windows. Left at the ramp. Right after a long stop. Several minutes on rough pavement. A sharp curve that pressed her shoulder against the door. She listened instead of looking. A train horn. The deep call of a ship. Metal striking metal somewhere beyond the road. They were moving south toward Tacoma. Caleb noticed her attention. "Still translating 'I am listening.' That is what got you into this?" "No. Desperation got me into this." His expression changed slightly. "Dominic taught you that line." "He taught me how men use desperation." The vehicle passed through a security gate. Emma heard chains dragging across pavement. Then the smell reached her. Salt water, diesel, rust. The port of Tacoma. The vehicle stopped inside an abandoned cold storage warehouse. The building rose around them like the empty body of a machine. Steel beams crossed the ceiling. Pipes ran along stained walls. Melted ice dripped into black puddles beneath broken refrigeration units. Caleb pulled Emma from the vehicle. 2 men waited near a metal chair bolted to the floor. One of them tied her wrists behind the backrest. The rope cut into her skin. Caleb placed the silver case on a table. He opened it. Blank paper filled the inside. He looked at Emma. She held his gaze. Caleb lifted one page, then let it fall. You knew. I suspected. And Dominic agreed to send you anyway. I chose to come. Did you? He moved closer. Dominic gives people choices after deciding which options they are allowed to see. Emma tested the rope around her wrists. You sound like a man who has spent 15 years beside him and only recently discovered what he is. I know exactly what he is. Then why are you still angry? Caleb rested both hands on the table. Because I built him. The warehouse seemed to listen. Caleb dismissed the two men with a glance. They moved toward the loading bay, leaving Emma alone with him. He pulled another chair across the floor and sat in front of her. When Patrick Rourke died, Dominic inherited a name and 3 failing businesses. Nothing more. His father had debts, enemies, and men waiting to carve the family apart. You saved him. I gave him an army. Caleb leaned forward. I negotiated the port routes. I bought the first officials. I settled the first disputes. When men refused to listen, I made sure the next men did. And Dominic took the credit. He became the face people could respect. I became the reason respect was safer than refusal. Emma watched the bitterness settle into every line of his face. Did he promise you half? He promised partnership. But you remained his employee. I remained the man who kept him alive. Caleb stood and began walking around her. Then you arrived. A waitress with a hospital bill and a talent for making guilt sound intelligent. Emma felt the rope tighten as she shifted. You are not angry because I changed him. No, you are angry because he let me question him. Caleb stopped behind her. For 15 years, every decision had a consequence. A man stole, he paid. A partner lied, he disappeared. Fear kept the structure stable. Fear kept you important. His hand closed around the back of the chair. You convinced Dominic that mercy was strength. I convinced him to look at the people paying for his decisions, and now the port is divided. Our partners are moving against us. Men who once obeyed are calculating odds. Caleb came around to face her. You did not make him better. You made everything uncertain. Emma looked up at him. Then what you built was never loyalty. Caleb's eyes narrowed. It was ownership. He struck her across the face. The force turned her head. Blood filled her mouth. Emma breathed through the pain. When she looked back at him, she saw something she had not understood before. Caleb did not simply want Dominic's empire. He believed Dominic belonged to it. Caleb crouched in front of her. Where are the original records? I do not have them. Dominic trusted you with access. He trusted me with words. He gave you more than that. He gave me reasons to stay. Caleb laughed quietly. You still think that means he saw you as a person? Emma said nothing. Caleb placed a thin file on the table and opened it. Inside were photographs of Emma leaving the university, entering the hospital, serving tables at the Alder room, and sitting beside Carol's bed. Some had been taken weeks before Dominic approached her. Emma stared at them. Caleb watched the realization move across her face. The restaurant was not an accident, he said. I know. You know he investigated you. Yes, you do not know who found you. Emma looked at him. Caleb tapped the photograph of her grandmother. Anya Volkov knew Irina Rourke. After Irina died, Dominic spent years looking for anyone who remembered the language she spoke at home. Emma's throat tightened. He wanted an interpreter. He wanted a connection. Caleb turned another photograph toward her. It showed Carol entering an oncology center. When your mother became ill, you became useful in 2 ways. Emma forced herself to keep breathing. The wager was planned, every detail. The Russian men at the table, one of them was told to insult you. The $5,000. Dominic knew the amount on the hospital notice. Emma looked down at the floor. The moment she had replayed in her mind the challenge, the silence, the shock in Dominic's eyes had been built around information stolen from her life. Caleb studied her carefully. He did not rescue you. He selected you. Emma lifted her head. And you helped him. I thought he wanted a tool. What changed? He started asking what you thought. The answer came without hesitation. He canceled profitable routes. He questioned methods that had protected us for years. He spared people because their pain reminded you of your own. Caleb leaned closer. Dominic has never loved without turning love into leverage. His mother, his father, his organization, now you. Emma tasted blood when she spoke. You understand him well. I made him. No, you found the worst part of him useful. For a second, Caleb's control slipped. He grabbed her throat. Emma forced air through the pressure. You believe he is coming, Caleb said. She could not answer. He will come because you are the first thing he has wanted more than the organization. His grip loosened. That is why I chose you. Caleb returned to the table and opened a laptop. A live map showed several port properties marked in red. By sunrise, Dominic's accounts will be frozen. His captains will receive proof that he has abandoned them. The federal files will lead to your signatures. When he tries to protect you, he will expose every remaining asset. And you take control. I restore order. With Viktor Sokolov. With people who understand that business cannot be governed by emotion. Emma glanced at the small recorder clipped inside her coat. Dominic had given it to her after a negotiation in Vancouver. It looked like an ordinary translation device, but the emergency setting could transmit short audio fragments to a secure server. Caleb had taken her phone. He had not searched the coat lining. Her wrists were bound, but the recorder rested close to her left hand. Emma shifted against the chair as if trying to ease the pressure on her shoulders. Her fingertips touched the edge of the device. She pressed the emergency button. A faint vibration answered. Caleb continued speaking to someone through the laptop. Emma looked toward the broken windows near the roof. Beyond them, she could see the top of a cargo crane. One arm was bent at an unnatural angle. She began speaking in Russian. Your plan depends on Dominic moving south. Caleb looked at her. Speak English. You wanted a translator. I want the records. Emma continued in Russian, choosing each word carefully. Cold, harbor, south, 11, broken crane. Caleb crossed the space between them. What did you say that this warehouse smells like dead fish? He pulled the recorder from her coat. For a moment, Emma thought he understood. He examined the screen. The device appeared inactive. Caleb threw it against the wall. Plastic cracked across the concrete. Emma watched the pieces fall. She did not know whether the message had transmitted. Caleb lifted her chin. Dominic taught you courage. No. She looked into his eyes. My mother taught me that fear does not deserve obedience. A vehicle approached outside. One of Caleb's men entered. We have movement near the south gate. How many unknown? Caleb looked at Emma. A slow smile crossed his face. He came. At Dominic's office, the first alert had reached a secure terminal 13 minutes after Emma disappeared. The sound was barely more than static. A technician played it twice. Emma's voice emerged beneath engine noise. Cold, harbor, south, 11, broken crane. Dominic stood behind him. Run every warehouse in Tacoma with abandoned refrigeration. The technician searched port records. 3 possibilities. Which one has a damaged crane? A satellite image appeared. Warehouse 11 stood beside an old loading yard near the southern channel. A broken crane leaned over the roof. Caleb had chosen a place Dominic once used to store frozen imports. He knew every entrance, every tunnel, every blind corner. One of Dominic's captains urged him to wait. Caleb expects us. We need more men. More men create more noise. The Vancouver partners are moving on Pier 27. If we redirect security now, we lose the route. Dominic looked at the map. Seal every exit from Warehouse 11. That will leave the northern properties exposed. Then they are exposed. The captain stared at him. You are moving the entire organization for one woman. Dominic picked up his coat. If I leave her there to protect the organization, Caleb already owns what remains. Rain struck the roof of Warehouse 11 harder as darkness settled across the port. Caleb moved Emma into a storage chamber lined with steel walls. Frost stains still marked the seams, though the refrigeration system had been dead for years. He tied one end of the rope around a support beam. You should be grateful, he said. For the chair. For the truth. Emma's cheek throbbed. You think the truth makes you different from Dominic. I never pretended to be kind. No, you pretend cruelty makes you honest. A distant sound rolled through the building. Not thunder, a controlled explosion. The overhead lights went out. Emergency bulbs flickered red along the walls. Gunfire erupted near the loading bay. Caleb drew his pistol. Emma heard men shouting outside the chamber. A voice called for Dominic. Another burst of gunfire answered. Caleb grabbed Emma by the arm and dragged her behind a steel pillar. Dominic's voice carried through the warehouse. Caleb. Caleb pressed the gun against Emma's side. You burned 15 years for a woman who will testify against you the moment she understands what you are. Dominic answered from somewhere beyond the machinery. She already understands. The words moved through Emma more sharply than fear. Dominic knew she saw him clearly. He had come without believing love would make her blind. Caleb fired twice toward the darkness. A bullet struck metal. Sparks scattered across the floor. Dominic's men returned fire. Caleb pulled Emma toward a narrow passage between storage units. She stumbled, then used the movement to twist her left wrist against the sharp edge of a broken bracket. The metal cut her skin. The rope loosened slightly. Caleb dragged her harder. Emma pressed again. The rope tore deeper into her wrist, then slipped over her hand. She kept the arm behind her back. Caleb stopped near a conveyor belt and leaned out to fire. Emma swung the loose metal chair brace into his wrist. The gun fell and slid beneath the conveyor. Caleb turned. Emma drove the pointed edge into his shoulder. He shouted and struck her. She fell against the concrete. Caleb pulled the metal from his flesh and threw it aside. Blood spread across his shirt. He grabbed Emma by the throat and lifted her partly from the floor. You should have stayed invisible. Emma clawed at his wounded shoulder. He released her with a curse. A second pistol appeared in his hand. He raised it. A shot cracked through the warehouse. Emma felt heat tear through her side. For a moment there was no pain, only pressure. Then her legs failed. She fell beside the conveyor belt. Blood spread beneath her coat. Caleb looked toward the far entrance. Dominic stood there with a weapon in both hands. His face changed when he saw Emma on the ground. Every trace of restraint disappeared. Caleb moved into the maze of storage rooms. Dominic reached Emma and dropped beside her. Look at me. She pressed one hand against her side. It went through. I know. You do not know. I know where the blood is. His voice was controlled, but his hands shook. Gunfire sounded deeper in the building. Emma caught his sleeve. Do not leave. Dominic looked toward the corridor where Caleb had vanished. Then back at her. One of his men reached them. Stay with her, Dominic ordered. Emma tightened her grip. He wants you angry. Dominic leaned close. He shot you. That is not permission. His eyes held hers for 1 second. Then he pulled free and followed Caleb. The cold storage rooms formed a narrow grid of steel doors and dark corridors. Dominic found Caleb near the old compressor chamber. Caleb leaned against a wall, one hand pressed to his wounded shoulder. You chose her, he said. Dominic kept the gun raised. I chose to stop you. You stopped me because she made you ashamed. Maybe. Caleb laughed. She will never belong in this world. This world was always yours. Dominic stepped closer. I was only the name on the door. I made that name feared. You made fear the only language we spoke, and she taught you mercy. She taught me to hear the people paying for my decisions. Caleb's expression hardened. You think that makes you different? No. Dominic's voice was quiet. It makes me late. Caleb reached slowly toward the floor. A pistol lay near his boot. Then kill me, he said. Prove nothing changed. Dominic hesitated. Caleb smiled. Then he raised the pistol toward the opening behind Dominic. Emma had appeared at the end of the corridor, one hand pressed against her wound, supported by the steel wall. Dominic fired first. The shot struck Caleb in the chest. Caleb staggered backward. For a moment, he looked less angry than surprised. He slid down the wall and became still. Dominic lowered his weapon. Emma looked at Caleb's body, then at Dominic. You killed him. He was aiming at you. That is not an answer. Dominic moved toward her. Her knees gave way. He caught her before she struck the floor. Blood covered his hands as he lifted her. I could not lose you. Emma struggled to focus on his face. You do not get to call everything love. The words were barely audible. Then her eyes closed. Dominic carried her through the loading bay into the rain. He repeated the Russian phrases she had taught him. Stay with me. Open your eyes. I remember. Emma heard them from far away, as if his voice were reaching her through deep water. At a private clinic outside Tacoma, surgeons removed damaged tissue and controlled the bleeding. The bullet had passed through without striking a major organ. Dominic sat in the hallway with Emma's blood dried across his shirt and hands. Carol arrived shortly before dawn. She crossed the waiting room and slapped him. The sound turned every head. Is she alive? Yes. Will she recover? The doctor believes so. Carol looked at the armed men near the doors. You saved her from a danger created by your world. Dominic said nothing. Do not expect gratitude for putting out a fire you carried into our house. I do not. Carol studied him. For once there was no command in his voice, no bargain, no attempt to shape what she should feel. A doctor entered and said Emma was stable. Dominic closed his eyes. Relief moved through him like pain. By noon, the consequences had already begun. Federal agents raided 2 warehouses. 3 company accounts were frozen. A port official disappeared before investigators reached his home. Viktor Sokolov seized control of a northern shipping route. Several of Dominic's captains stopped answering calls. Caleb's death had removed the traitor. It had not removed the betrayal. Natalie Pierce contacted Dominic through a secure line. Her voice was calm. Caleb left copies of everything. Where with people who want you desperate. They will not get the chance. They already have. Federal investigators found documents carrying Emma's signature. Dominic looked through the clinic window at Emma lying beneath white sheets. She was framed. You know that. They do not. What do you want, Natalie? To stop pretending this can be solved with another body. That night, Dominic moved Emma before the clinic could be discovered. She woke hours later in a bedroom overlooking a dark lake. Pine trees pressed against the windows. Mist covered the water. Her side burned beneath fresh bandages. She tried the door. Locked. Dominic sat on the other side of the glass with his head lowered. Emma struck the door with the flat of her hand. His eyes opened. Where am I? A safe house near Lake Crescent. Open the door. You need rest. I need the door open. There are men looking for you. Emma stared through the glass. Why is it locked to keep you alive? She placed her palm against the cold pane. No. Dominic stood. Emma's voice remained quiet. To keep me where you can see me. Dominic held Emma's gaze through the glass. For a moment neither of them moved. The mist outside pressed against the windows. Beyond the bedroom, Lake Crescent lay dark and still beneath the mountains. The house was built from cedar and stone, beautiful enough to belong in a travel magazine. Warm lamps glowed along the hallway. A fire burned in the living room. Every door required a code. Every window opened only a few inches. Emma struck the glass again. Unlock it. You were shot less than 24 hours ago. That does not make me your prisoner. It makes you vulnerable. To whom Dominic looked toward the guards at the end of the hall. Caleb had partners. Victor has men searching hospitals. Federal agents have your name on forged records. So you brought me somewhere no one could find. Yes, and took my phone. Yes, and locked the door. His silence answered for him. Emma leaned one shoulder against the wall because standing had begun to pull at the wound beneath her bandages. Dominic saw the pain cross her face. He reached for the keypad. The lock clicked. Emma opened the door before he could touch the handle. He stepped back. That small movement mattered. It did not repair anything, but it gave her enough space to breathe. Where is my mother on her way? You moved her too. I sent people to bring her safely. You sent armed men to take a sick woman from a hospital. They explained the situation. Men carrying guns do not need to explain much. Dominic's jaw tightened. I did not have time to ask permission. You never do. Emma pushed past him. The hallway tilted. She caught the wall. Dominic reached for her, then stopped before touching her. You need to lie down. I need my phone. It can be tracked. I need to call Maya. That could expose this location. Emma looked at him. Then give me a secure phone. I cannot allow you to contact anyone until we know which lines are compromised. The words settled between them. Allow you. Emma stared at him until he heard it too. Dominic looked away. You are not safe. And you think that sentence gives you authority over every decision I make. I think it gives me a responsibility. No, it gives you fear. He met her eyes again. What is the difference when someone is trying to kill you? Responsibility asks what I want. Fear decides for me. A guard appeared at the far end of the hall. Mr. Rourke, there is movement near the eastern road. Dominic turned instantly. How many vehicles to? They passed the lower gate without stopping. Send a team. No lights. The guard left. Dominic looked back at Emma. This is why the doors are locked. No, this is why you are afraid. You should be afraid too. I am. Her voice broke on the word. The anger drained from Dominic's face. Emma pressed a hand to her side. I am afraid of Caleb's partners. I am afraid of federal agents. I am afraid that my mother will get hurt because of me. I am afraid that I helped men whose names I never knew destroy people I never saw. She swallowed. And I am afraid of you. Dominic stood perfectly still. Emma continued before he could defend himself. Not because I think you will shoot me. Because every time you are afraid of losing me, my world gets smaller. The house was silent except for the fire shifting in the next room. Dominic reached into his pocket and removed a keycard. He placed it on the table beside her. That opens every interior door. What about the exterior doors? He hesitated. Emma gave a bitter laugh. There it is. If you walk outside without security, I cannot protect you. I did not ask to walk outside alone. Then what are you asking to be asked? He looked at the keycard. Then he added a second one. This opens the front and rear doors. Emma picked up both cards. Tell the guards not to stop me. I will tell them not to touch you. That is not the same thing. It is what I can do tonight. Emma's face tightened. What you can do and what you are willing to do keep becoming the same sentence. She returned to the bedroom and closed the door without locking it. That night, sleep came in pieces. Emma dreamed of the warehouse light swinging above Luis Alvarez. Each time it crossed the room, Caleb sat in the chair instead of Luis. Then Dominic. Then Carol. When the light reached Emma, the chair was empty because she was already tied to it. She woke with a scream trapped in her throat. A glass of water fell from the bedside table and shattered. The bedroom door opened. Dominic entered. Emma saw a dark figure move toward her and reacted before she recognized him. Her hand struck his face. He stepped back instantly. Emma pressed herself against the headboard, breathing too fast. It is me, he said. I know. Her voice shook. Dominic touched the red mark along his jaw. I should have knocked. I am sorry. The apology left her automatically. She hated herself for it. No, Dominic said. Do not apologize. I hit you. You woke up afraid. That does not make it right. No, but it makes it mine to understand. Emma looked at the broken glass. I keep hearing the shot. Dominic crouched several feet from the bed. He did not move closer. Do you want me to leave? Emma opened her mouth. The answer would not come. His presence made the room feel safer. His presence was also part of the reason safety had become difficult to recognize. Sit by the door, she said. Dominic sat on the floor beside it. They remained there until morning, separated by the length of the room. Carol arrived shortly after sunrise. She came through the front entrance wearing a wool coat over hospital clothes, one hand gripping the arm of a nurse. Her face was pale with exhaustion and fury. Emma reached her first. Carol held her carefully, avoiding the bandaged wound. I am all right, Emma whispered. No, you are not. I will be. Carol looked past her toward Dominic. You had armed men enter my treatment room. I needed to move you before the hospital was watched. It was watched by your men. The threat was real. So was my right to decide whether I left. Dominic accepted the words without answering. Carol took Emma's hand. Do you want to stay here? Dominic looked at Emma. She felt the entire house waiting. No, Dominic's face remained unreadable. It is not safe to leave. Carol turned to him. I did not ask you. Emma tightened her grip on her mother's hand. I want to go home. There are federal agents at your apartment, Dominic said. Victor has people monitoring the hospital. Caleb sent copies of the forged documents to 3 organizations. If you leave this property now, I cannot guarantee your safety. Emma looked around the room. The guards, the cameras, the coded doors. You keep describing a cage and calling it a guarantee. I am trying to keep you alive. Carol stepped between them. My daughter kept working for you because she believed my treatment depended on it. The fund was protected from the beginning. She did not know that. The contract stated it. The contract came from you. Carol's voice remained quiet, but every word landed cleanly. You investigated her debts. You found her fear. You arranged a situation where accepting your help felt like the only reasonable choice. Dominic looked toward Emma. I never threatened to stop Carol's care. You did not need to, Carol said. You made yourself the source. Emma closed her eyes. Carol turned to her. Did you believe leaving him could affect my treatment? Emma nodded. For a long time. Then you did not feel free. I signed the contract. A signature does not remove pressure. I chose to stay. You chose from inside a fire. Emma pulled her hand away. What was I supposed to do? Watch them cancel your treatment. Carol's eyes filled. You were supposed to ask me. I knew what you would say. That is not the same as asking. You would have told me to leave. Yes. And if the cancer spread, that would have been my fear to carry. Emma stared at her. I could not let you die. Carol stepped closer. You were so busy saving my life that you stopped asking how I wanted to live it. The words opened something inside Emma. For months she had used Carol's illness as the answer to every question. Why she took the money. Why she signed. Why she stayed. Why she translated. Why she ignored Maya. Why she believed leaving was impossible. Emma looked down at the floor. I had no choice. Carol touched her cheek. You had terrible choices. That is not the same as having none. Dominic stood near the window. The sentence reached him too. He had built an empire from the same excuse. No choice, no clean exit, no safe alternative. Only necessity, only survival. Only one more act of violence before peace became possible. A vehicle approached the house near noon. The guards moved toward the front entrance. Dominic drew his weapon. Emma's body tightened at the sight of it. He noticed and lowered the gun. A woman stepped from a gray sedan. Natalie Pierce entered carrying 2 leather cases. Her cream coat was wet at the shoulders. She looked as composed as she had at every charity event Emma had seen her attend. Dominic did not welcome her. How did you find this place? You paid the property taxes through a shell company I created. 2 guards searched her bags. Natalie watched without complaint. When they finished, she opened the first case on the dining room table. Inside were financial ledgers, encrypted drives, bank records, and photographs. Emma recognized account names from the forged documents. Natalie looked at her bandages. I am sorry about Caleb. You knew what he was doing. I knew he was moving money. I did not know he planned to use you. Dominic closed the curtains. Why are you here? Natalie removed a file and placed it before him. For 3 years I have documented your organization. The room went silent. She laid out the evidence, one category at a time. Payments to port officials, shell corporations registered in Nevada and Delaware, security contracts used to pressure business owners, warehouse leases tied to illegal shipments, accounts Caleb controlled without Dominic's knowledge, money delivered to families after employees disappeared, donations to hospitals and schools, legal payroll records belonging to thousands of workers who had no idea where the capital came from. Dominic stared at her. You worked for me. I worked near you. You had access to everything. You gave me access because you believed money was less dangerous than men. Dominic's hand rested on the table. Who do you represent? A dock worker's widow. Emma looked at her. Natalie continued. Her husband refused to falsify a cargo inspection. Caleb took him from his home. His body was never found. I did not authorize that, Dominic said. Natalie's eyes hardened. You created the system that made authorization unnecessary. Dominic said nothing. Natalie opened the second case. This organization is finished. Caleb's records had reached federal investigators. Victor was moving against the remaining routes. Several corrupt officials were preparing agreements to protect themselves. Dominic could still run. He could still fight. He could still cooperate. Natalie placed 3 folders on the table. The first contains identities accounts and a route through British Columbia. You can leave tonight. Carol looked at Dominic. What happens to everyone else? Employees lose protection. Associates become targets. Federal agents seize whatever remains. Natalie touched the second folder. This contains the names of captains still loyal to you. You can call them, retake the port, and begin a war. How many people die? Emma asked. Natalie looked at her. No one can calculate that. She placed her hand on the final folder. This contains a cooperation framework. Dominic's expression darkened. You want me to surrender. I want you to decide whether keeping your freedom is worth everyone else's blood. What does cooperation buy? Nothing guaranteed. Natalie opened the folder. If you provide financial records, identify corrupt officials, testify about international partners, and surrender without violence, prosecutors may protect legitimate employees. They may separate medical funds from criminal assets. They may consider immunity for Emma. Dominic looked at her. May the government does not reward people for becoming reasonable after years of crime. Emma stood across from him. Do not do it for me. His eyes moved to hers. Why not? Because then I become another excuse. You could go to prison. So could you. I am responsible for bringing you into this. Yes, then let me get you out. You do not get to choose accountability only because it protects someone you love. Dominic's face tightened. Emma stepped closer to the table. If I leave tomorrow and never speak to you again, would you still surrender? He did not answer. That is the question. Carol watched him. Natalie closed the first two folders. Dominic looked out at the lake. For years, men had waited for his decisions. They had feared his silence because silence meant he was calculating the cost of force. Now he stood in a quiet room with no threat powerful enough to make the choice for him. At last, he turned to Natalie. Prepare the medical fund transfer. Emma stared at him. Dominic continued. Move Arena House under an independent hospital board. No Rourke employee. No company authority. Carol's treatment and every existing patient remain covered. Natalie opened her laptop. What about the employee pensions? Transfer them into protected trusts using legitimate assets. That will leave you with almost nothing outside the criminal accounts. I know. Emma watched him sign the first document. The pen moved slowly across the page. When he finished, Natalie handed the papers to Emma. She read every clause. The fund could not be withdrawn. Dominic could not appoint directors. No patient could be denied care because of an investigation into him. Emma looked up. This is the first thing you have given me that does not require me to stay. I should have understood that sooner. You understood. Dominic's eyes held hers. You just did not want to lose the advantage. The words hurt him. He nodded. Yes, there was no defense, no explanation, no attempt to turn confession into forgiveness. Emma signed as a witness. Natalie began reviewing Caleb's files. Less than an hour later, she found a federal transfer record marked with Samuel Ward's name. She turned the laptop toward Emma. You sent evidence to your professor. Dominic looked at her. Emma did not look away. When before Caleb took me, how much everything I had. Natalie studied the record. The files were forwarded yesterday morning. Federal investigators already have copies. Dominic's face changed. You gave them my accounts. I gave them the documents sent to frame me recordings from meetings and notes about the port. You planned to betray me. I planned to survive you. The room became still. Dominic walked toward her. Carol moved between them. Emma stepped around her mother. No, let him hear it. Dominic stopped several feet away. You believed I would kill you. I believed you might decide protecting your organization mattered more than protecting me. I went to the warehouse. That does not erase what happened before it. You trusted Samuel more than me. I trusted a system that did not require your permission. Dominic looked as though she had struck him. Emma's voice remained steady. Your organization is not collapsing because I saved evidence. It is collapsing because the evidence exists. The lights flickered. One of the guards entered quickly. Vehicles on the western road. At least 6. Dominic reached for his gun. Natalie looked at her phone. They are early. Federal, I cannot confirm. A sharp explosion shattered the front windows. Emma dropped to the floor. Carol covered her head. Dominic pulled both women behind the stone fireplace as glass rained across the room. Commands sounded outside. A voice ordered everyone to surrender. One of Dominic's guards fired through the broken window. Dominic shouted, "Lower your weapons." Another explosion struck the rear of the house. Smoke rolled through the hallway. Natalie crawled toward the dining table and grabbed the drives. Dominic seized a radio. No one fires unless fired upon. A guard answered through static. They are entering from the north. Stand down. They killed Marcus. Stand down. Gunfire erupted from the forest. Dominic closed his eyes for 1 second. The organization he had built no longer obeyed one voice. Fear had outlived loyalty. He led Emma, Carol, and Natalie toward a service corridor beneath the stairs. Emma pulled away. "What about the guards? Some will surrender, and the others, I cannot control them." She looked at him. The admission sounded unnatural in his voice. He opened a hidden door behind a panel of cedar. A narrow concrete tunnel descended beneath the house. They entered as bullets tore through the hallway behind them. The tunnel smelled of earth and cold water. Emergency lights glowed near the floor. Carol struggled to breathe. Emma wrapped an arm around her waist. Dominic walked ahead with his weapon lowered. The tunnel ended at a boathouse concealed beneath the trees. A small motorboat waited in the dark. They pushed away from shore as agents reached the house above. Gunfire crossed the water. Dominic turned to shield Emma. A bullet struck his shoulder. His body twisted. Emma caught him before he fell over the side. Blood spread through his shirt. "Keep driving," he told Natalie. Emma pressed both hands against the wound. Dominic looked at Carol. "There is a road on the northern shore. Natalie can take both of you." "No," Emma said. "You need to leave me." "No. Victor wants me. Federal agents want me. You are safer without me." Carol looked at the dark shoreline. "My daughter is not leaving me." Dominic faced Emma. "You do not owe me anything, I know. Then why are you still here? Because choosing to stay for this moment is not the same as belonging to you." He had no answer. The boat reached a private dock. Natalie found an old vehicle inside a locked maintenance shed. They drove east through the mountains while dawn faded into a gray afternoon. Dominic's shoulder continued bleeding. Emma sat beside him in the back seat, holding a folded towel against the wound. Carol slept in the front. Natalie drove without speaking. Dominic looked at Emma's hands. "There is something you deserve to hear from me." She kept pressure on the wound. "I know the restaurant was arranged. Caleb told you. He showed me the photographs." Dominic looked through the window. "I knew about your grandmother. I knew she had known my mother. You knew about Carol." "Yes. You knew the amount on the hospital notice." "Yes. The men at the table insulted me because you told them to. I told them to test whether you understood regional speech." Emma's hands became still. The $5,000 was not a wager. It was a test. You made desperation look like coincidence. "Yes. You gave me a door." "Yes. Then charged interest every time I tried to leave." Dominic closed his eyes. "Yes." Emma turned toward the window. Trees moved past in dark waves. She had imagined confronting him with anger. Instead, grief settled inside her with terrible calm. "I loved the man who tried to remember his mother's language." Dominic opened his eyes. "I loved the man who listened when I told him Luis deserved to live." Her voice began to shake. "I loved the man who came into that warehouse even though he knew I might never forgive him. Emma, I am also afraid of the man who thought loving me gave him the right to arrange my life." Dominic looked down at the blood on her hands. "I know." "No." She faced him. "You are beginning to know." He accepted the correction. Natalie drove toward Seattle as evening descended. The city appeared beyond the highway lights spreading beneath low clouds. Dominic named one place where they could stop. The Alder Room. The restaurant had closed after federal agents questioned its manager. It sat dark along the waterfront, its dining room empty, its windows facing Elliott Bay. Natalie unlocked a service entrance using an old access code. Inside chairs rested upside down on tables. Glasses hung above the bar. Rain traced silver lines across the windows. Dominic walked to the table where Emma had first served him. He removed the gun from beneath his coat. Emma tensed. He placed it on the table. Then he removed the magazine. A single round remained in the chamber. Dominic pulled it free and set it beside the weapon. The empty gun occupied the same place where $5,000 had once rested. Sirens moved through the distant streets. Emma stood across from him. "What happens now?" Dominic looked at the weapon, then at her. "That depends on whether I finally understand the difference between surrender and losing." Dominic remained standing beside the table. Rain moved across the windows behind him, soft at first, then harder as if the storm had followed them all the way from the mountains. The dining room smelled of dust, old wood, and the faint citrus polish once used on every table before the doors opened. Emma looked at the empty gun. The $5,000 was gone. The wager was gone. The illusion that either of them had entered this room by accident was gone. Only the truth remained. Dominic pulled out the chair across from him. Emma did not sit. "Tell me what surrender means to you," she said. He rested one hand on the back of the chair. "It means giving them what they need to dismantle the organization. That is what it does. I asked what it means to you." Dominic looked toward the dark windows. "For most of my life, surrender meant letting someone else decide what happened to me, and losing, watching something I built become someone else's weapon." Emma stepped closer to the table. "You built it as a weapon, I know. No, you keep saying that as if knowledge arrived all at once." His face tightened. "Then tell me what I do not understand. You still speak about the organization like it was a house that became dangerous after Caleb damaged it. It was dangerous because fear held every wall together." Dominic looked at the empty gun. "I thought fear kept chaos outside. It kept people inside." The words settled into the quiet dining room. Natalie stood near the bar with Carol. Neither woman interrupted. Dominic pulled the chair back and sat. Emma remained across from him. For a moment they looked like they had on the first night. A powerful man at an expensive table. A young woman standing before him because money had made walking away difficult. But the room no longer belonged to him. The power between them had shifted because Emma finally understood every part of the bargain. Dominic reached into his coat and removed his phone. "There is a federal prosecutor Natalie has been communicating with." Natalie approached and placed a business card on the table. "Assistant United States Attorney Rachel Bennett," she said. "She is leading the corruption investigation." Dominic read the name. "What does she know enough to arrest you?" "Not enough to protect everyone who will be caught when the accounts collapse." Dominic looked at Emma. "You should leave before I call." "No, if agents enter this building and see you beside me, they may assume you are still helping me. They already have my files. That does not make you safe." Emma's expression hardened. "Do not begin again." He stopped. The instinct to command had entered his voice before he noticed it. Dominic placed the phone on the table. Emma sat across from him. "You want me here?" he asked. "I want to hear what you say when there is no one left to impress." Natalie entered the prosecutor's number. The phone rang 3 times. A woman answered. "Bennett." Dominic looked at the empty gun. "This is Dominic Rourke." Silence followed. When the prosecutor spoke again, her voice had changed. "Where are you? The Alder Room on Alaskan Way. Are you armed?" "There is one unloaded weapon on the table. The magazine and chambered round have been removed. How many people are inside?" 4. "Emma Hayes, Carol Hayes, Natalie Pierce, and me." Natalie lifted one finger. 5, Emma said. Dominic looked toward the kitchen. A restaurant manager stood in the doorway. Robert Lane had worked at the Alder Room for 11 years. His shirt was wrinkled and his hair looked as though he had run his hands through it many times. "I came when the alarm notified me," he said. "I have nowhere else to go." Dominic returned to the call. 5 people. The prosecutor ordered him to place both hands on the table. Dominic did. "What do you want?" she asked. "To surrender." "You could have done that at the lake. My men opened fire. Your men, yes. Then do not separate yourself from the result." Dominic looked at Emma. "I am not." The prosecutor asked for proof that the surrender was genuine. Dominic gave her access codes to 2 encrypted servers. He identified 3 accounts Caleb had used to bribe port officials. He named a warehouse where original paper ledgers were hidden behind a false wall. Natalie listened closely. Some of the information was new even to her. The prosecutor interrupted. "Why should I believe any of this?" "Because the server access will expire in 10 minutes and you will confirm the first account before we finish speaking. You are trying to control the terms. I am trying to make cooperation useful before your agents put me in handcuffs. That sounds like control." Dominic's eyes shifted toward Emma. "Yes," he said. "It does." The admission seemed to surprise the prosecutor. Dominic continued. "I will provide the names of every public official who received money from my companies. I will identify foreign partners, shell corporations, and private accounts. I will explain which businesses are legitimate and which were used to move illegal funds, in exchange for what protection for employees who had no knowledge of criminal activity. The medical fund remains independent. Existing patients do not lose treatment because my assets are seized. You are not in a position to demand anything. No." Dominic's voice was calm. "But I am in a position to make protecting innocent people less expensive than abandoning them." The prosecutor remained silent. Dominic added one more condition. Emma Hayes tells the truth without interference from me or my attorneys. Emma looked at him. The prosecutor asked, "Are you asking for immunity? I am asking you to evaluate her conduct separately from mine. That is already our job. It has not always been done well." The answer nearly sounded like the old Dominic. Then he said, "But I understand that it is not mine to decide." The prosecutor ordered everyone except Dominic to move into the kitchen. Dominic looked at Emma. She shook her head. "I am staying." The prosecutor heard her. "Ms. Hayes, leave the table." Emma leaned toward the phone. "I am here voluntarily. You may be entering an active arrest scene." "I understand. You have been injured." "I understand that, too." Dominic lowered his voice. "Emma." She looked at him. For the first time there was no command in his expression, only fear. "Let me do this alone," he said. "Why? Because the next step belongs to me." Emma stood. The sentence was different from everything he had said before. He was not pushing her away to control her. He was accepting the part no one else could carry. Emma joined Carol and Natalie in the kitchen. Robert locked himself in the manager's office. Dominic remained alone at the table. Through the narrow kitchen window, Emma watched him place both hands flat against the wood. Red and blue lights began moving across the restaurant walls. Federal vehicles surrounded the building. A voice from outside ordered Dominic to stand and walk toward the front entrance. He rose slowly. The empty gun remained on the table. Dominic passed the place where Emma had once stood holding a bottle of scotch, while men insulted her in a language they believed she could not understand. He stopped at the front door. For 1 second he looked back. Emma stood beyond the kitchen window. He could not see her clearly through the dark glass, but he knew where she was. Dominic opened the door and stepped into the rain. Agents shouted commands. He raised his hands. They forced him to his knees on the wet pavement. One agent pulled his arms behind his back and secured the handcuffs. Another pressed him face down against the ground. Dominic did not resist. Emma watched through the window. She did not cry. She did not smile. She kept her eyes on him because this was not a rescue or a romantic gesture. It was a choice. He turned his head toward the restaurant before agents lifted him. Emma remained there until the vehicle carrying him disappeared into the rain. Federal agents entered the building moments later. They separated everyone. Emma was taken to an interview room in the downtown Federal building. A nurse examined her wound before investigators began questioning her. The room contained a steel table, 3 chairs, and a camera mounted near the ceiling. An agent placed photographs before her. Warehouse 11, the private clinic, the house near Lake Crescent, Dominic's office, Emma's apartment, the Alder room. Each image showed another place where her life had narrowed around him. An attorney named Melissa Crane entered nearly an hour later. Carol had contacted her through the hospital's legal aid program. Melissa was in her early 50s with silver hair and a voice that never rose. She sat beside Emma. "No questions without me present," she said. The lead investigator opened a folder. "Ms. Hayes, your signatures appear on several financial documents connected to money laundering and illegal shipments. They were forged. We found messages arranging meetings. I worked as an interpreter. You continued working after you became aware of criminal activity." "Yes." Melissa turned toward Emma. "You do not have to answer beyond the advice we discussed." Emma looked at the investigator. "I knew enough to understand that some meetings involved crimes. When I cannot give you one clean moment, try." Emma thought of the first restaurant conversation. The container at the hotel. Luis tied to a chair. Caleb's voice behind the office door. I knew the first night that Dominic's associates discussed violence. I told myself hearing it was not the same as helping it, and later I translated negotiations. Accurately, not always. The agent leaned forward. "You changed translations." "Yes, why? To prevent violence." "You decided what other people were allowed to hear." Emma looked down at her hands. Yes, the words sounded different in that room. They sounded close to the thing she had accused Dominic of doing. The agent asked how many times she had altered meaning. Emma gave every example she could remember. Luis, the captain at Pier 27, a Russian advisor whose threat she softened, a demand against a family she refused to translate. She did not present herself as a hero. Each altered sentence had prevented one danger while making her more valuable to the system creating it. The investigator placed a photograph of Dominic before her. "Did he force you to work for him?" Emma answered carefully. "He did not threaten me with a gun. That was not the question. He investigated my mother's illness. He arranged our meeting. He offered enough money to make refusal feel impossible." "Did he ever say treatment would stop if you left?" "No, then you remained voluntarily," Melissa interrupted. "Voluntary participation can still involve coercive circumstances." Emma touched the edge of the table. "I stayed because my mother needed treatment. I also stayed because I liked being useful." The investigator watched her. "I liked walking into a room where powerful men waited for me to speak. I told myself I was reducing harm. Sometimes I was. Sometimes I was helping the room continue." The camera above them recorded every word. For 14 hours, Emma described the organization. She handed over the original recordings from her secure storage account. She explained the grammar codes hidden inside the forged files. She gave them the drive sent to Samuel Ward and the notes she had kept after meetings. The federal investigators found evidence that Emma had begun preserving records before Caleb abducted her. They also confirmed she had no authority over accounts cargo or company operations. The prosecutor offered her a limited immunity agreement. It protected her from charges directly related to truthful testimony and documents she had preserved. It did not protect her if she lied. Emma signed. 3 months passed before Dominic appeared in court. During that time, the city dismantled what remained of his organization. Warehouses were seized. Several companies entered federal receivership. Employees were interviewed and divided into categories. Some had known nothing. Some had suspected. Some had carried out orders because refusing felt dangerous. Others had used Dominic's name to enrich themselves. Viktor Sokolov was arrested near the Canadian border after attempting to leave with false documents. 6 port officials were indicted. 2 police officers resigned before charges were filed. The evidence uncovered burial sites connected to Caleb's operations. One of the bodies belonged to the dock worker Natalie had spent years trying to find. The news reports called Dominic a crime boss, businessman, philanthropist, racketeer, and suspected killer. Each description contained part of him. None contained the whole. Emma returned to university while waiting for trial. Students recognized her in hallways. Some avoided her. Others watched her with open curiosity. A journalism student asked whether Dominic had kidnapped her. Emma replied, "That is not the whole story." The student asked whether she had fallen in love with him. Emma walked away. Samuel Ward returned her sealed drive after investigators copied it. "You did the right thing," he said. Emma looked at the envelope. "I did it late. Late is not the same as never. People were hurt while I waited." "Yes." Samuel did not soften the answer. Emma appreciated him for that. Her friendship with Maya recovered slowly. For 2 weeks, Maya answered Emma's messages with short replies. Then one evening she arrived at the apartment carrying groceries. She placed them on the counter without speaking. Emma stood near the sink. "I am sorry," Maya continued unpacking, "for disappearing, for making you feel crazy when you were right. I did not want to be right." "I know." Maya turned. "I thought you chose him over us." Emma looked toward the window. "I chose the feeling of being necessary. He knew how to make that feeling expensive." Maya's expression changed. She stepped closer and took Emma's hand. There was no dramatic forgiveness, no promise that everything would return to normal. They cooked dinner together. That was enough for one night. Carol continued treatment through the Independent Medical Fund. The cancer responded, then stalled. Her doctors adjusted medication. Some mornings she felt strong enough to walk along the waterfront. Other mornings Emma sat beside her bed and read aloud from old Russian stories Anya had once loved. Carol never asked Emma whether she still loved Dominic. She asked whether Emma felt free. The answer changed from day to day. Dominic's sentencing hearing took place in a federal courtroom filled beyond capacity. Reporters occupied the rear benches. Former employees sat beside victims. Families whispered beneath high ceilings. Dominic entered wearing a dark suit provided by his attorney. His hands were cuffed at the front until he reached the defense table. He looked thinner. The old certainty remained in his posture, but prison had stripped away the environment that once made his silence feel dangerous. He saw Emma sitting behind the prosecutor. Their eyes met. Neither of them smiled. The judge reviewed the agreement. Dominic had pleaded guilty to racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy, extortion, obstruction, and facilitating illegal shipments. Several additional charges were reduced because his cooperation led to arrests, asset recovery, and the dismantling of a trafficking network. The courtroom first heard from victims. Luis Alvarez approached the witness stand wearing a borrowed suit. His daughter sat behind him beside a nurse. Luis explained how he had stolen money for Sofia's surgery. He described the warehouse light, the ropes, the photograph Caleb placed on the table, and the fear that remained after Dominic allowed him to live. "He gave me time," Luis said. "He did not give me freedom." The prosecutor asked whether Dominic helped pay for Sofia's care. Luis nodded. "Yes." "Does that change what happened?" Luis looked toward Dominic. "It makes it more confusing." A restaurant owner testified next. For 8 years, he paid a monthly security fee to one of Dominic's companies. No one openly threatened him. The meaning was understood. When he missed a payment, his delivery truck burned. Dominic later helped rebuild the kitchen after a flood. The owner's voice shook. "He could hurt you and help you in the same week." Then he expected gratitude to erase the fear. A woman named Elena Moreno approached the stand. She was the widow of the dock worker Natalie had represented. Her husband had refused to approve a false inspection report. Caleb's men took him from their home while their son watched. His remains had been found beneath concrete near an abandoned warehouse. Elena faced Dominic. "You said you did not order it." Dominic did not move. "I believe you," she continued. "That is worse." The courtroom became completely silent. "You built something where men could take my husband without asking you. Then you accepted the silence that followed." Dominic lowered his eyes. Several legitimate employees also spoke. A receptionist from one of his construction companies said Dominic had paid for her son's college tuition. A warehouse mechanic said Dominic had kept hundreds of workers employed after another company abandoned the port. A hospital administrator described the thousands of patients helped by Arena House. The testimony did not balance the harm. It complicated it. That was different. When Emma's name was called, she walked toward the witness stand. Dominic watched every step. The clerk administered the oath. The prosecutor approached. "Ms. Hayes, how did you meet Dominic Rourke?" Emma described the restaurant, the wager, the Russian dialect, the hospital payment, the contract. She explained how Dominic arranged the meeting after researching her family and Carol's illness. "Did you believe the challenge was spontaneous?" "Yes." "When did you learn otherwise after Caleb Knox abducted me?" The prosecutor asked about her role. Emma described the meetings she translated and the meanings she altered. She admitted she understood the work was criminal long before she left. "Why did you stay? My mother needed treatment." Was that the only reason? Emma looked at the jury box, though there was no jury for sentencing. "No." "What else?" I felt powerful beside him. A murmur moved through the courtroom. The prosecutor waited. Emma continued. "I had spent years being ignored. At his table, people listened when I spoke. I told myself my presence made the organization less violent. Did it sometimes? Did that justify your participation?" No, Dominic's expression changed slightly. The prosecutor placed both hands on the lectern. "Is Dominic Rourke a good man?" Emma looked toward the judge. "That is not a legal question." The judge allowed her to continue. Emma faced the courtroom. "He can be compassionate, he can be patient. He remembers what people need and he gives without being asked." Dominic watched her. "He also uses fear money and protection to make people dependent on him." The room remained still. "If you describe only his cruelty, you will never understand why people trusted him. If you describe only his kindness, you will never understand what that trust allowed him to do." The prosecutor asked, "Did you love him?" Emma breathed slowly. "Yes." "Do you still?" Dominic's attorney objected. The judge allowed the question because Emma's emotional involvement affected her decisions. Emma looked directly at Dominic. "Yes." The word did not save him. It did not excuse her. It simply existed. "Does that love affect your testimony?" "It is why telling the truth hurts." Emma turned back to the prosecutor. "It is not a reason to change it." Dominic's attorney asked only a few questions. "Did Mr. Rourke ever strike you?" "No." "Did he ever threaten to stop your mother's treatment?" "No." "Did he rescue you after Caleb Knox abducted you?" Yes. Did he surrender voluntarily? Yes. The attorney stepped closer. Do you believe he can change? Emma looked at Dominic. I believe he can choose differently. That was not my question. It is the only answer I trust. Emma left the stand. Dominic spoke last. His attorney handed him a prepared statement. Dominic looked at the pages, then placed them on the table. He stood. For years I called fear respect. His voice carried through the courtroom. I called dependence loyalty. I called control protection. He looked toward the victims. I helped people. Sometimes I helped because they needed it. Sometimes I helped because gratitude made them easier to govern. The judge watched him carefully. I did not order every act of violence committed in my name. That is not a defense. I created a structure where men believed violence would be rewarded if it protected my interests. Elena Moreno sat in the second row. Dominic faced her. Your husband died inside that structure. He did not ask forgiveness. He did not say Caleb's name. I made choices. Then I built a system that made everyone else's choices smaller. Emma felt Carol take her hand. Dominic asked that seized legitimate assets be directed toward victim compensation, employee pensions, and the medical fund. The prosecutor confirmed that most of those transfers were already underway. The judge sentenced Dominic to 15 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release. She credited his cooperation but emphasized that useful information did not erase years of harm. Dominic stood as officers approached. Before they led him away, he looked at Emma. She silently formed the Russian words he had practiced in the car. I remember. Dominic nodded once. A year later, the Alder room reopened. The old name had been removed from the glass. New letters read, The Open Table. A court-approved trust divided ownership among former employees and a community nonprofit. Emma held no private ownership. She served on the board and worked with the language programs hosted there every week. The private wine room became a legal aid office. The upstairs dining space hosted medical fundraising dinners. On Saturday mornings, immigrants practiced English beside volunteers learning Russian, Spanish, Ukrainian, and Vietnamese. The original table remained near the window. Emma had considered removing it. Instead, she left it in place, not as a monument to Dominic, as proof that a room could change its purpose. Emma finished her graduate thesis, The Moral Weight of Translation, Language Power and Complicity. Samuel approved it without changing the title. Carol attended the presentation wearing a red scarf and carrying the same crossword book she had used in the hospital. Her cancer was stable. The word stable did not mean cured. It meant one more scan, one more season, one more breakfast shared without fear controlling every sentence. Emma began therapy with a counselor who specialized in trauma and coercive relationships. At first, she hated the silence in the office. It reminded her of Dominic. Later, she learned that silence could also be space no one was forcing her to fill. She did not visit Dominic during his first 6 months in prison. He wrote letters. The first was 4 pages long. Emma returned it unopened. The second contained no request. She read it. Dominic described the prison literacy program. He had begun helping Russian-speaking inmates translate legal notices and letters from home. His Russian remained poor. Emma noticed 6 grammar mistakes on the first page. She did not correct them. The third letter included a drawing. It showed a window without a door. The fourth showed the same room. A door had appeared in the far wall. 1 year after sentencing, Emma entered the federal prison visiting room. The space was bright and colorless. Plastic chairs surrounded small tables bolted to the floor. There were no private rooms, no armed men standing behind Dominic, no money between them. He entered wearing a plain uniform. His hair was shorter. A scar marked one eyebrow. He sat across from her. For several seconds, neither spoke. "How is Carol?" he asked. "Stable. And Maya? She still believes your taste in coats was terrible." Dominic smiled. The expression disappeared quickly as if he had not yet learned whether happiness was allowed in that room. "How is the restaurant busy? I heard you changed the name." "Yes, it is better." Emma studied him. He did not ask whether she missed him. He did not ask why she had waited a year. He did not tell her that visiting meant something she had not chosen. Dominic removed a folded page from a folder. "I wrote something." He slid it across the table. The page contained several sentences in Russian. Emma read them. The grammar was terrible. She took the pencil attached to the table and marked one mistake. Then another. Dominic watched her. "You said you would stop correcting me. I changed my mind. Am I allowed to be glad you came?" "Yes." "Am I allowed to ask whether you will come again?" "You can ask. Will you?" Emma looked at him. "I do not know." Dominic nodded. "Thank you for not lying." The old version of him would have searched for leverage inside her uncertainty. The man across from her let the answer remain unfinished. "I used to think redemption meant becoming someone you could love without fear," he said. Emma placed the pencil down. "And now I understand that still made you the reward." Her throat tightened. "I have to change even if you never choose me." Emma's eyes filled. "That is the first thing you have said that makes me believe you might." Dominic placed his hand flat on the table. He did not reach for hers. After a moment, Emma placed her hand beside it. Their fingers did not touch. The distance between them was small. The consequences between them were not. When the visit ended, Dominic stood. "I remember he said in Russian. His pronunciation was correct." Emma smiled for the first time. Then she walked out. She did not wait near the prison gates. She returned to Seattle. That evening, the open table was filled with voices. A Russian grandmother helped a young server pronounce the name of a dish. 2 children completed homework near the bar. A legal aid volunteer spoke quietly with a dock worker in the corner. Carol sat near the window arguing with Maya over a crossword clue. On the wall hung one of Dominic's prison drawings. It showed the original restaurant table. $5,000 rested on one side. An empty gun rested on the other. Between them stood an open door. A new server named Lily stopped beside Emma. "What does the Russian sentence mean?" Emma looked at the words beneath the drawing. "Love does not make us innocent," she translated. "It gives us one more reason to become honest." Outside rain moved across Elliott Bay. Inside, no one lowered their voice because they were afraid of who might hear. Emma looked around the room. Then she returned to work.